Hello, welcome, all of you life learners. Thank you for tuning in today. So, how do you feel about umpires? That could be controversial. And what about monkeys? And finally, what about financial reviews? If you're wondering where this is going, well, we hope you can get comfortable with all of those ideas coming together because you'll want to stay tuned for today's episode. So, good day to all of our YouTube viewers and audio listeners across all 19 or 20 platforms. You are appreciated. Thank you and welcome to episode 304 of the Business of Life Masterclass podcast here in season 8. For listeners and viewers alike, we ask you to give it a second and think about the last time you had a chance to review your finances without fear or guilt. Since Barb and I are all about creating and appreciating spending and frugality alike, today's episode of the Business of Life Masterclass podcast is on getting financially sound without monkeying around. You know we like our titles to give you a little intrigue. So hi everybody, it's Debbie Lundberg, Performance, Mindset, and Resilience Coach with Presenting Powerfully.
Barb Zant here, media sales leader and founder of the lifestyle brand and blog, The Stay at Work Mom. So Debbie, who is our guest that can show us ways to get the financial monkey off our back?
Well, Barb, he's a Tampa native who was raised by a single mom and adopted in 7th grade. His dad is number 9 of 18 children. Can you imagine? He has been married for 25 years after meeting his wife on spring break in Key West at Rick's on Duval. Some of our listeners may know this. The slogan at Rick's on Duval is ironically the place where people meet. So our guest is proof of that. The dad to 2 boys, he started his banking career with Barnett Bank in grocery stores and that grocery store banking division. So picture this. He used to set up displays in the produce department with heads of lettuce. And when shoppers would ask him what he was doing, I mean, here's a banker in the produce department, he'd say, "Let us do a financial review while you shop." I'm sure he got a few eye rolls, but a lot of people found it charming. So before that, his first job was at Q105, where he dressed up as the monkey for appearances by the Q Morning Zoo. So we had all kinds of stories popping up in my mind here. So prior to becoming a banker, he considered becoming an umpire and hoped to call games in Major League Baseball. He did a lot of officiating for baseball, football, and wrestling until he had kids. With that as a fair ball, please welcome Fifth Third Bank Regional President of North Florida, Scott Daigle.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction.
Welcome, Scott. We are happy to have you here today. But what is one thing that is not in your bio that is interesting or cool? But just a tease for now. We will hear more about that at the end of our episode.
Well, let's see. There were so many things teased there already, but I thought about this a little bit, and I thought it'd be worth mentioning. You led off with I've been married for 25 years, and I have an amazing connection to Debbie that dates back to my honeymoon in Italy.
Wow, I can't wait to hear more on that.
I was wondering if you're going to tell that. I'm smiling because it's really funny, Barb. You've not even heard this. Or maybe you have. Maybe I told you.
Well, more to follow on that for sure. So, Scott, you were invited today on the Business of Life Masterclass podcast for your ability to make change and inspire others to do the same. Since you have listened to our podcast, please share what specifically made you want to be on the Business of Life Masterclass.
Yeah, well, you guys do such a great job. I really enjoy hearing your perspectives and probably as much the guests that you have on. Specifically, you had Chris Carlo on, who is a longtime friend of mine, over 20 years. And I actually learned a few things about Chris. You guys got him to open up in ways that I hadn't heard him open up. And, any way that I could be affiliated with Chris Carlo, I kind of felt like I had to try to jump in and be a part of it.
Well, thank you. And I love that. Love that we could help with that. But before we get into our podcast before Debbie asks our 4 questions, what's one thing that you are super excited about as we are ending second quarter and going into third quarter?
Well, tying back to the introduction, I have 2 boys. My oldest is a senior in high school, so we are all things graduation right now. He's got a lot to come. I was before getting on this, I was actually chatting with a guy that I coached baseball with him. He was on Davis was his coach as well. And just reminiscing about all the things that have kind of brought him to this point and dreaming about kind of what his future will look like. So exciting times for sure. One chapter
I
closing, another one opening.
I love that, and I love that you're excited about the graduation, upcoming graduation. I have a graduate from high school as well. We would love to hear one song. What that is your life's walk up music? What would that be?
Well, I'm a product of the 80s and 90s, so my like mental soundtrack is like U2 and Duran Duran, Cyndi Lauper, Pearl Jam. But you got to stay kind of modern. You got kids. You can't be going with something. So I put a lot of thought into this, and I settled on "Public Service Announcement" by Jay-Z.
Ooh, okay, public service announcement. You did go very different than the 80s and 90s with Jay-Z. All right. Okay, well, we will certainly be listening to that.
I don't know if I've heard that.
Yeah, and that's a new one. We
Allow me
haven't
to
had that.
introduce myself.
Yeah, I know that one. All right, so you know that after we had that fun thought on your Jay-Z song, we're moving into the Business of Life Masterclass podcast 4. Scott, you know these are the 4 questions we ask every one of our guests dating back to our very first episode. We've added things like the walk-up music and the excited about. This is the core of the show. So number 1, what time do you get up in the morning, and what is your morning routine that you believe gets you started right?
Yeah. I get up at 5:15 a.m. Reluctantly, I must admit, but I have a very motivated wife, and therefore I'm grateful that she drags me to Hot Works
Mm-hmm.
to keep me healthy. We have a joke that I want to meet my grandkids, but so that's what gets things going. But by the time we're done with a nice sweaty workout, we get home around 6:30, and I make breakfast for my family. That's probably where I really start to get focused in on kind of what's going to happen in the day. Everybody's kind of getting aligned with what's going on so that we don't miss out on anything. And I really do like to make my family. I like to cook. I like to be in the kitchen. I like making food for everybody. I kind of get a little creative. I must admit, I do take advantage of, hey, we're in a rush today, so somebody's getting something out of a microwave, but not always. I like to actually cook. And I'm typically out the door by 7:30 and into my day. Sometimes that's straight to the office, and other times it's to a meeting or a community event. So.
Okay. Really nice morning routine. I will say it right now, Barb. I have passes to Hotworks, so she's gonna, press us. You know that, Scott. So I'm in. Number 2. So you've got a really great morning routine, and we noticed in season 8, we had almost all females at the beginning of the season, and we have almost all males right now, and it's really been fun to hear because my husband cooks as well. So it's like this trend is the men cooking all of the food, and I'm aligning with that. All right, so number 2, what's something other than this terrific morning routine that you believe if other people would do it would set them up for additional level of success? Barb likes to call it that secret sauce or the extra umph.
Yeah. I make a personal phone call on the way to the office or on the way to my first thing. So I think, a lot of our personal brands are tied into what we do for work. And, as I mentioned earlier, I was talking to Davis's, baseball coach. And so had absolutely nothing to do with banking, didn't have anything to do, although it did have something to do with my kids. But generally try to and I find it brightens up their day, it brightens up my day because, I hadn't talked to Billy in probably, 4 or 5 months. So
Oh,
I got
wow.
to catch up on what was going on with his son, Nick, who just finished his baseball season and, just a couple fun little stories here and there and kind of sets you up, changes your perspective.
And keeps you connected to your point. I mean, that is
Absolutely.
what are we here for if it's not the true relationships and connection?
Yeah.
All right. Number 3 then. So you're up, you're working out, you're making breakfast, you're making phone calls. So changing it a bit, who or what has been the biggest influence on your life and your success and your continued focus on wonderful relationships in the community? And really importantly, Scott, what have you done with that influence?
Yeah. I thought about this question because I've heard you ask it a few times in my listenings, and Honestly, I think my wife, Laurie's been just such a huge influence on me. I mean, I, I almost hate to even admit this. I probably had fairly low aspirations and didn't know, like, if I remember starting in banking, I was like, well, if I could become a branch manager, that would just be amazing. And, I've realized so many more dreams. I think that she's helped me early on believe in kind of what I was capable of and kind of reinforce that. I mean, there may be some demandingness of Laurie Daigle as well, but overall, I mean, I just she's been great.
Inspirational. I when I get to speak in classes, and I'm happy to do it, people will say, what was the most important decision, or what was the decision that changed? And I tell people, the most important decision is not where you go to school or what your major is or what your first job is. It's your life partner. It's who
Yeah,
you surround yourself with. So I'm sure Lori Daigle will be happy to hear about her influence, and bringing a smile to our face, certainly.
yeah.
Thank you. So number 4, you know that the Business of Life Masterclass podcast is about positive things and positive impact and influence. At the same time, we have these master classes, and we've hosted some, and we will in the future. What would you say if you were to hold that master class and tell someone something to stop doing because it's holding them back or dragging them down, so that in effect it would be a positive if they would quit it?
Yeah, I flash back, before Wachovia was bought by Wells Fargo, I had gotten my first leadership job, and I had a disgruntled customer. Well, let me frame it out a little different. So Wachovia is getting bought by Wells Fargo, and there's 4 of us that are in a similar job that Wells Fargo said, "Hey, we're going to reorganize," and the 4 of you are basically competing to get this one job. So I have this new boss, and I had this experience with a customer that was pretty upset. They had taken out a loan for the loan was due on the first of the month, and loan documents have this like 10-day grace period where you're not late, right? And so this guy paid his loan for 10 years on the 10th of the month the whole time, and so here he is. He thinks he's paid off. Well, what happens is interest accrues still for those 10 days. So not to get too far into the weeds, he still has a few more payments to be made because he has this extra interest. As you might imagine, he's like, I've been diligent. I paid my loan all this time. And so
Mm.
I made a snap decision and said, well, we'll just split it with you. And he's like, that's fair. Thank you so much. I'm very proud of the decision I made. And I ended up telling my boss like about this experience and how I solved the problem. And he immediately said, that's the worst decision I've ever heard. And I was like, okay, well, tell me more. He's like, the guy owed us the interest. Like he made the decision. Like that's how it works. And at the end, the punchline of all of this is he said, Scott, let me just give you some advice. Nobody gets hurt if you say, let me get back to you. It'll allow you to think about what's the best solution. What's the best solution for the business? What's the best solution for the customer? And ultimately, you can ask other people what they think and really arrive at a decision that is good for all parties. Now, I still think the decision I made was the right decision. It was fair for the customer and fair for the bank as well. But I did take that lesson, and I think that sometimes, especially when you get into the position where you are the person making the decision, you want to make those decisions fast, but at the same time, you want to make them balanced. So let me get back to you. Never hurt anybody.
Let me get back to you. Never hurt anybody. That is so true. And I agree with you. And it made me think when you were telling the story, if you would have been an umpire in the major leagues, you would have been very fair. You would have been very much about listening. And now that they have these, where they're testing it, where you can question the call, seems
Oh
like you would
yeah.
have done really well in that scenario, in those scenarios. So thank you for your podcast 4.
And thank you, Scott. I feel ready to take some action. So, Debbie, here are a couple of things that I plan to implement. And it sounds like we're going to do a class together at Hotworks. I don't even know what that is, but we'll find out. 5:15, that's my reluctant time to get up too. So I'm going to put that back on my docket. My husband does all the cooking, but you know what? I have very little time before my son goes off to college. So I'm going to make breakfast. We'll see how that works and make a personal call on the way to work. Debbie, how does your list look? Is it different, or obviously we're going to do that class together?
We'll do the class. We'll definitely do the class. Michael and I don't eat breakfast together very often because we
For
leave,
time.
he walks Daisy when I go to run. And so I commit to that on the weekend. And, thinking about the 7:30 out the door, what I loved is to make the phone call because even my running partners, I could call them on a different day because I know they're out early like I am. So I like that idea because I'm like you, Scott. I like talking on the phone to people and staying
Yeah.
connected that way to let them know that you're thinking of them. So I'm in for all of those, Barb.
All right.
Now I'm curious to hear about this story, though. I
Yes.
mean,
So, yes, Scott, as we wrap up, please elaborate on how Debbie is connected to your honeymoon in Italy.
Yeah. Well, this is crazy. We went on a 14-day cruise that boarded off the coast of Rome in Dubrovnik, Italy, and not Dubrovnik, Italy. I forget what the town is, but Dubrovnik's in Croatia. But at any rate, that was one of the towns that we went to as well. And what I didn't realize in my 20s was that no 20-year-olds were really going on 14-day cruises at that time. So it was a lot of 1920s silent movie stars that were on this cruise. And they were very charming people, but there was one 20-year-old couple that was across the room, and one very gregarious guy named George Griffith. And we found each other the very first night of the cruise. And I'm happy to report that we have spent time together every year over the last 25 years, renting lake houses in the Georgia mountains, going to the beach on the North Carolina coast, going to the Keys, and so on and so forth. Well, one day about 10 years ago, he said, "Hey, I've been meaning to ask you." Actually, he's got a real Southern drawl. "Hey, Scott, I've been meaning to ask you, do you know Debbie Lundberg?" I said, "What? Yeah, I know Debbie. What?" Well, Michael and George were fraternity brothers at East Carolina in the 90s, and they still go on golf trips together, and they're like really good friends, not just like, hey, he was one of the guys. Like they are in fact, I don't know, was George in your wedding, Debbie? I feel like
he
they're kind
wasn't
of,
in the wedding party, but I
yeah.
know that they're close. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So this like two worlds collide. I mean, there's like Scott Daigle, Tampa, and then this guy that met a random friend in Italy that we have a great time with. But George has been a terrific friend. I remember we were on a follow-up cruise. I'm going to date myself here, and I was sort of struggling or reimagining how I was going to organize myself. He's like, "I need you to buy a Palm Pilot, and we're going to sit on the pool deck, and I'm going to show you how to use this Palm Pilot. It's going to change your life, Daigle." And George is a super motivating guy. Actually, you should get George to do this. He's amazing.
Okay.
So,
All right. We'll get George's contact. This is how we bring in other people. So thanks, Scott.
Yes.
We will get George on the show and he will charm us with his Southern accent and all of his motivation. It'll be fun. Maybe he'll tell a funny story about you.
oh gosh, he's got a few of them, Debbie. He
I
does.
would suspect I know you're not supposed to say boys, but when they're all together, I'm like, those boys have some stories,
Yes,
I've been to that
absolutely,
fraternity house when it was still standing. There are a lot of stories there.
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I love that story, Scott. I got the chills when you were telling it. That's so cool. We do have time for a closing comment or statement or a mantra that our listeners didn't get to hear with everything that you have shared today. What will it be?
Oh, let's see. My closing mantra. I mean, I guess I probably have to stick with "Let me get back to you." So that's certainly helped me through my years. So I'll stick with that one today.
Well, let us
Yeah.
get back to you on when George is going to be on. How about that?
Okay. Absolutely.
We'll,
Absolutely.
we'll implement it right away. And that is another thing you can add to my list, Barb, to say that. Let me get back to you. Okay, so thanks again. And, as we're ready to say goodbye, we know that that you went Jay-Z on the early side of this, so you wanted to stay modern. What would be your walk-off music? Let's say you're on stage. What is that walk-off music?
All right, I go back to my younger years on this one. I like Fortunate Son by Clearwater CCR.
Oh, wow. Okay. That did take you back. You've got a big variety in your music.
Well, so that the way I got the monkey costume job is my mom worked for Q105. So growing
Ah,
up as a fifth grader and having your mom work for the cool radio station in town was not a bad thing.
no.
But as a result, I have a very eclectic music taste. My house was the house that had records upon records all over the house because there was a lot of music. So, yeah,
That's cool.
Thanks so much, Scott.
thank you.
All right, listeners, you can stay connected to Scott Daigle, and maybe you can find the monkey costume pictures. I don't know. I haven't seen them, but we'll start digging. He's on social media under his name, and you can certainly follow Fifth Third Bank. Similarly, you can follow Barb and me on Instagram and Facebook at the Business of Life Masterclass. Barb is the Stay at Work Mom, and I'm Debbie Lundberg, most places, Debbie Lundberg Coach on TikTok.
You like the insights that you heard today, please rate us 5 stars. We are committed to providing you with 5-star guests just like Scott. Please provide us feedback. We absolutely implement it. And stay tuned next week for what Debbie and I did on our follow-through show. So thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business of Life Masterclass, the podcast for successful people embracing every chance to accomplish and experience all you can in business and in life.
Listen, choose, do. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have ever thought, gosh, I'd like a collaborator, I wonder what else I could do, it's likely that the answer is a coach. Hi, I'm Debbie Lundberg, Performance and Mindset Coach with Presenting Powerfully. And if you would like confidential coaching to drive you to the next idea, the next role, or even to figure out your own brand, please reach out to us at Presenting Powerfully, 813-494-4438. Thank you.